Hi friends, my name is Host Eric. I'm the host of Talking to Friends People. And one thing that I tend to do when I'm feeling troubled or bothered is make a video explaining what's going on with me, talking it out, and that way you can kind of get it out of my head so it doesn't leave space in my head for the rest of the evening or whatever. But anyway, I completed a live stream not that long ago in which a gentleman named Michael Smith arrived. And the history with him is that he first ran afoul of me when when Rachel and I typed police Melissa Talks, and he came in swinging that I had victimized her in some way. But of course, couldn't articulate any particular way why. And anybody who actually watched that type police video would note I didn't even say she wasn't an ENTP in that video. I said there wasn't enough evidence to arrest her. It was very civil, cordial video. It was in no way, shape, or form an attack on her. Now, I got a little bit more adversarial in my rhetoric with her after her response to my initial video, which initially it still doesn't make any sense. Like, did she watch the actual video? Because her response is completely not proportional to whatever even the harshest critique could perceive as me or Rachel attacking her in any way, or even really strongly calling into question her type, right? Not enough evidence to arrest you. I don't think you are really an ENTP, probably, but I can't say for sure. It's hardly a reason for somebody to flip out in the way that Melissa Talks did. And there's nothing else in the video that anybody could call abusive at all. Nothing at all in the video that anybody could call abusive at all, right? So I was not as friendly in my tone when I responded to her response to the Type Police video, in which she blamed me for her missing weeks of work because she didn't like my Type Police video, which is apparently, from what I can tell anyway, I have no way of knowing speculation, but it doesn't seem like she watched it. Now, shortly after that video, this guy shows up swinging full blast verbally, Michael Smith, and just doesn't seem to want to really hear any facts that might be informative about the matter. Anyway, he called me, yelled at me, screamed at me for quite a while, screaming a bunch of stuff that, I heard the words, but they weren't meaningful expressions of anything based on anything. It was just like, you're a bad person. He called me a rapist, etc. Of course, I didn't rape anybody, and I asked him who it was he thinks I did that to, and no answer, of course. Then he's been gone for quite a while. That whole thing was long in the past, over and done with, right? Why are you rehashing old shit, Eric? Because he showed up again today and was absolutely as venomous as he could possibly be across the board, would not listen to or hear anything I said. And when I tried to get to the bottom of why he hates me so much, because keep in mind, I have never encountered this guy or met this guy at all, except for that Melissa Talk shit. He may have come around he was around a little bit during that time period, call that one event, right? And then now, I've never done anything to the guy. I've never done anything that could possibly justify the level of vitriol he has against me, right? So I tried to get to the bottom of why. And the reasons he cited were things like I was disrespectful towards my dad's urn, which is true, it was a mistake of mine, but is not a reason to hate me. It's something I regret. I've already talked about plenty of regretting, and can also be blamed in the fact that after one's father shoots oneself 20 feet from where one is sitting, there's a state of emotional upheaval that follows as one deals with a bunch of issues that one deals with after a death that perhaps didn't get dealt with before the death, People make mistakes. I live my life as a human being on YouTube, and so my mistakes are visible to other people. That makes it possible for them to try to use those mistakes as a weapon against me. But you have to be kind of purposely malevolent because I'm doing it the right way. I'm living, being honest about everything, as I noted at the time. And when I make mistakes, acknowledging and critiquing myself, right? And being open to those critiques and recognizing that because that factually happened, that somebody's going to talk shit about it. Fine. Okay. But it still doesn't explain why he hates me so much. He said additionally that, like, well, he said that I was a bully, that I was a victimizer. But when I asked him to articulate the names of any victims of mine or how I victimized them, nothing, right? He falsely accused me additionally of something else. He said I was lying when I was wrong about a specific detail. Acknowledged I was wrong about it. Didn't really remember for sure. Given the benefit of the doubt. And then proceeded to attack me in any way he thought could hurt me. Specifically, like talking about my inheritance, what my dad's decision to make Delilah the trustee meant, about whether or not I deserve any respect or should be shamed and stuff. Well, of course, I make videos like this where I talk publicly about my own issues with that stuff and struggles with that. When I couldn't get anything actually particular about why he hated me so much, but I kept questioning, he said eventually you need to be taken down a notch or a few notches, you know. So the thing is, what's weird and interesting, but kind of disturbing, is that despite that extended conversation I had with him, in which I was nothing but civil, genuine, and reasonable, he found that increasingly frustrating, I guess, I hypothesized, and ended up threatening to call the IRS on me. Now, I indicated at some point in the stream that it's disturbing to know that some people in the world hate you so much that they feel it justifies willfully trying to do you harm, either by slandering you with false accusations or by trying to get you to feel afraid by threatening to call the IRS on you. Of course, what could he possibly tell the IRS? What does he know that I'm doing wrong? Right? He's just assuming that I'm not dealing with any IRS shit, that Delilah and I aren't talking about it. He's just assuming that really that threatening to call the IRS on somebody generally will elicit fear, just as having a lawyer send you a letter will elicit fear in most people. It's not going to elicit fear in me in this instance, in part because of all of the stuff he kept talking about regarding my role in the Strauss Family Trust going forward, etc. Right? So one nice outcome was it kind of made me realize tonight, hey, maybe my dad did that because he realized I was more susceptible to being sued than Delilah is, you know. Regardless, so I indicated that it's concerning if somebody's so willing to do harm of any sort, right, based on nothing more than ultimately, I don't like you, I think you're too smug, I think you need to be taken down a notch. That's the only actual motive I could find that would justify it at all. Everything else was completely nonsense, false accusations. He accused me of harassing Melissa Talks, even though I never emailed her, never talked to her, never called her, never messaged her, had no interest at all in communicating at her one bit. Whereas meanwhile, this guy is actually harassing me, right? I kept asking him about, okay, if these things that you're pointing out that are mistakes of mine, potentially, some of them were, some of them, he's just, I don't know what he was talking about, but some of them he just got the interpretation all wrong, interpreted everything wrong, and some of them were actually mistakes. And, regardless, the point is, I asked him, if I'm such a dirtbag because of these mistakes, which you've cherry picked from presumably many hours of my content in order to know the worst possible things you can about me, if that bad behavior, which objectively is regrettable but not wicked, I didn't harm anybody, right? I certainly wasn't being spiteful to anybody alive. Then what is your actual bad behavior? Falsely accusing me of things, threatening to call the IRS on me, even though you haven't even accused me of any kind of tax misconduct, of which I'm guilty of none. So I don't know why that doesn't concern me, right? But what concerns me is the warrant that I can justify doing harm to somebody, regardless of what kind of harm, simply on the fact that I don't like you. So when I expressed that in the stream, I said, one could even imagine somebody doing physical harm. I didn't even say it was him specifically I was talking about, right? And he left comments after the stream saying, relax, bro. I never said I'd do physical harm to you. I never said I'd physically harm you. I never said you said that, nor did I ever say you were going to physically harm me. But my point is, right, to Michael Smith, is if you are okay with doing some kinds of harm without adequate justification, then I have no reason to believe you're not okay with doing any kinds of harm without adequate justification. Unless I've harmed you and you need justice for yourself, okay, or unless you can articulate somebody else that I've harmed that you're trying to get justice from, then it boils down to you don't like me, and so spitefully you want to do harm to me. You want this badly enough that apparently you've researched my videos looking for things to condemn me about, right? I don't know that for sure, but that would be indicated by the amount of knowledge you displayed. Meanwhile, the only question you even remotely could be considered to have answered that I asked you, though I asked you many, was, what do you think of yourself then if my bad behavior makes me a dirtbag? You said, I only bully you because you're a bully. I'm not a bully at all, right? And occasionally I may bully people out of my way, so to speak. And that may or may not be good. It depends on the circumstances, right? Using the capacity to intimidate people, no matter for what purpose, is bullying your way through something. But sometimes it's more justified than others, right? And the classic understanding of bully, colloquial understanding of picking on weak people, that is absolutely not me at all, right? I defend those who are correct. It does not matter whether they're weak or strong, really, but I'm more likely to defend the weak. I have a long history of being the champion of those who are disempowered. And by and large, I managed to do it without trying to be the monster I claim to justify my own monstrous behavior, right? Even if I were a bully, that wouldn't justify you bullying me. It might justify you exacting some kind of consequence in some fashion, putting me in my place, yada yada. But you're not trying to stop any bullying at all, right? We were having a perfectly normal live stream, and you come in and start attacking me relentlessly in the most vicious and personal ways imaginable. And I don't ban you because I know how these things are going to play out, right? everything you try to attack me with is going to turn on you because I'm actually a good person. I'm transparent about stuff, so you can't use any secrets against me, right? And yeah, I make mistakes, but it proves I'm a human being. And so that was fine for me until you made the threat to call the IRS. Now, note, I'm not bothered by this threat because I'm worried about it for me. I'm bothered by it because it reveals that you have absolutely no moral center whatsoever, right? Just because you don't like me and you think I'm too smug or condescending, you think it's okay for you to call the IRS, not because you know I'm doing something wrong, but just because threatening to do so you think will make me feel fear. Right? Who's the bully? You're fortunate that I'm unbullyable, more or less, by people like you. You can't bully me because I'm Eric. This is the ego you hate so much, right? Well, what I mean by I'm Eric is I've been at this for a long time and I'm 52 years old. I'm at least a reasonably smart guy. I'm a TI user, so I'm very logical. I know I can handle my own and my arguments. Also, I have lots of experience in making these kind of arguments and dealing with these kind of people and this kind of bullshit, right? I already know because I'm actually a good person, the facts are on my side, I will turn their accusations against them, and that when their accusations are true, I will have already talked about it and dealt with it and come to terms with it long since because that's what I do as I'm doing this right now, right? So then what's the purpose of this video? Well, primarily is to say this guy is distressing, disturbing to me because he seems to have no qualms whatsoever about justifying doing harm to me, even in a totally unwarranted fashion, like calling the IRS on me, even though he knows nothing about my tax situation, no reason to think I'm avoiding paying taxes or something like that, no reason to think I'm trying to cheat the government, and yet he just wants to threaten that because he hopes it'll make me scared because there's going to be an audit or something. I'm not scared about it, but I am scared of you because you feel that it's justified to behave like this for no more reason than you don't like me, you think I'm smug or condescending, right? Well, I'm Eric. So yeah, I'm a little smug and condescending. That's who I am. I'm sorry you don't like me, but that doesn't justify you treating me as though I were some kind of criminal, accusing me of being one, and entirely not applying any such judgment metrics to yourself and your own horribly bad behavior, while concurrently slandering and defaming me and continuing apparently to believe that I'm guilty of some bad behavior while not being able to articulate specifically what it is to anyone's satisfaction. So, I'd like explanation from anybody, please, in the comments. What is going on here? I've never met this guy. I've never done anything to him at all. He came out of nowhere with the Melissa Talks thing. I allowed him to call and be on the stream. He yelled at me for a long period of time. Didn't listen at all to anything I said on the phone. Just screamed at me. And then eventually, I let him do that for quite a while. Then I hung up on him. I let him come into the stream and raise all of his objections. And I respond to them on point. Which, if he had any legitimate concern for anybody's well-being, he'd be looking to be satisfied that I'm not a threat, right? The reality is, he just doesn't like me. But normally, people recognize that just because I don't like you, that doesn't justify me trying to harm you, being spiteful like that, right? I mean, it's not a good use of his time, but more importantly, it's not a good way to be human, right? It's fine to be extremely condemnatory of someone's actual bad behavior. But to just be willing to do that to me in the absence of any actual bad behavior, be unwilling to hear anything about whether or not his behavior is justified and why it's justified, or or why his flimsiest of reasons don't withstand any muster, ever even consider the possibility that maybe I'm not this super horrible person who needs to be harmed. I don't know what to make of that. It's like, it's baffling, right? Any thoughts? I appreciate hearing about them. Not you, Michael Smith. No, thank you. Please stay away from the channel. I've banned you. I'll keep banning you. I'm asking you politely, please leave me alone.